Hello, everybody. I know we haven't talked in a while. I've been kind of busy. I finished a book. I finished a couple of short stories, two fantasy short stories, a science fiction short story, and I've also embarked on some new regimens that I hope to sustain through 2023. So let's talk about a couple of developments. I finished a book. Basically, its tentative working title is called a study guide to UAP UFOs. UAP meaning unidentified aerial phenomena, and UFO, we all know what that means. Um, it was actually relatively easy and pleasurable to write the book. I'm going to have to re-edit it a couple of times. There's a couple of rough spots. I learned a couple things about publishing. First of all, I contacted several publications, or what I thought were publications, including one called UFO Magazine, which I found out later does not produce a hard copy anymore. And I talked about the manuscript, sent them samples, and this lady kept saying, "Well, you should self-publish. You should self-publish." Which, I mean, to me, that sounds like you really suck. So I said, if you have any suggestions on how I can make this better, I would really appreciate it, because I want to produce an actual manuscript good enough to sell. If I self-publish a substandard manuscript, that's vanity publishing of the worst kind. I'm just, paying to have a book written that nobody else would have wanted. So she gave me some suggestions, and I said, okay, now will you please give me some names, some points of contact for publishers that publish this kind of contact. And I got some weird hemming and hawing, and finally she sort of said, well, there's only 5 book publishers in the entire world, which I think she's talking about English language book publishers, because they've all bought each other and consolidated, and nobody is publishing new authors right now, right? Which is why, she was pointing towards self-publishing. And I said, well, okay, thanks for finally telling me the truth about the situation. I'll take your advice very seriously. I'll go back and, re-edit a couple things. And, I had some other people kind of beta test the book. And, those that are into the topic were very enthused about the things I mentioned. So I may make some videos about that. All right. But then, I began to look into the publishing world, and how do you get into publishing? And it looks like the clearest path to publishing is short stories, because the short story market doesn't pay much. And, guys like Stephen King and George R. R. Martin and J.K. Rowling are not going to take a break from writing multi-million-dollar books and movie contracts and things to write a short story for $100 or $200 in magazines that cater towards new writers. So that's what I'm going through. I've written one story called The Darkwood Derangement, which that title could be changed, and I sent it to a online publisher called Beneath Ceaseless Skies. I want to make sure I say that right. And they were what I like about this website is they guarantee you feedback, and I've been using the feedback. They said, well, here's a couple of good things about the Darkwood Derangement. We like the way you describe things, and we're not. It took me a while to understand what they want. Is they want everything to be written in a third-person perspective that is very focused on the internal feelings of one character. So it's almost the first person, but it's written from third person, and they call it third-person immersive, right? So that took me 2 stories before I got what they're saying, right? And so, I've since rewritten the 2 stories, and I've taken the feedback. I've submitted one to another publisher, and the other one I'm going to, after I've re-edited the edit, try to send it to another publisher. And then I said, all right, well, the second story is called The Dream of the Red Griffin. and that's also fantasy. And the reason why I'm focusing on fantasy is because this publisher, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, guarantees you feedback, even if they reject you, and that's very valuable for someone trying to start off in this, right? And I'm hoping eventually I'll get a story they want, and I'll know that I'm on the right track. If they reject a story, I get to re-edit that story, rewrite it however many times, and resubmit it to someone else. And a lot of the other publishers aren't so good at giving you instant feedback. Now, my first love is science fiction. Those are actually the first real fantasy stories. I could even say second and third. There was a small story I made, but nobody took that, and I may have to republish that, re-edit that. But just you go with where you have the best opportunity. Now, I said my first love is sci-fi, so I just finished a book called a short story called The Deal Maker, which is kind of a mafia story set on the moon in the far future, and the lead character is an associate of the Yakuza, and one of my contentions is that the Yakuza will be the most popular international and inter-solar system crime syndicate, because they are they're a little bit more open to non-Japanese entering the Yakuza. They even recruit amongst Koreans and other immigrant and low-status populations in Japan, because they feel like they're easier to recruit and pull into the organization and control. And so I said, what if they took that to another level, and then they go into space, and now you have affiliates on the moon, on different O'Neill cylinders, on orbital stations around Neptune and the Jovian system, and so on and so forth. So I just finished that, and I gave it another edit, and I think I'm going to give it one more edit and try to find a publisher to submit it to. But my goal, my plan, okay, is if you can get 3 science fiction stories published for money professionally, then you can join this particular Science Fiction Writers Guild, which opens you up to other opportunities and other media. So, for example, some of your ideas could possibly get the attention of video game designers, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be an interesting year. I sort of said I'm going to bear down this year and really focus on my writing and on my health and physicality. So I also got a membership to Crunch Gym, which is literally a couple blocks away from here. I can walk there, and I often do, even in the cold. And I'm back on a much more solid weight training regimen. And I was working out very regularly at home and jogging and running. And so I'm on that. I noticed that I'm training much more high intensity, i.e. lower reps, less sets, less exercises, higher weight resistance, more force reps, more negatives, things like that. And, for example, when I do a lat pull down, I, often pull it down fairly fast and take as much time as possible bringing it up, and then when I get to that point, bring it back down, which is kind of more intense than just doing straight reps, just trying to get the reps in. So I find I train that way. I'm doing a lot with the machines right now, especially since I have joint issues with the knees and shoulders, and certain machines kind of really help me. Okay, but I do some work with the dumbbells, and I'm going to probably get back into work with some of the straight barbells. And I love the treadmill. I notice when I run on the treadmill, I don't run for as long as when I'm outside, but I often use graders, set the speed settings up, and inclines, and alternate with fast walking with high inclination, sometimes low intensity flat walking, and then I sometimes do rounds, 3-minute rounds of much faster running than I normally do, and then slower walks, and things like that. I kind of have a little bit more fun with it. And the gym has a lot of facilities. It has heavy bags. It has an aerobics room, a room just for stretching. It has hydro massage and tanning. I don't really need tanning. It has a sauna, which I may start using. So it's kind of a really cool gym experience. And hey, I'm a guy. There's a lot of really attractive women in there in very form-fitting clothes, and it's just kind of motivating, seeing them walking around. And I just noticed we're men. We just kind of push that much harder when that visual stimuli is around. And there's a lot of course, young men and with great physiques, and you see the progress they're making. You're like, hey, you don't want to be the schlub in the gym, but you can't. Like, I can't get in there and compete with some 25-year-old guy, but it being around other people, I feed off that energy. The other thing is I purchased this. Okay, this is a Turkish yatagan, and it is beautiful. Okay, extremely sharp. You'll notice the calligraphy. Let me put it right side up, so I can't really read Arabic, but this probably is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, or some, the Basmala, and I'm not sure what that is, but it's probably some Ottoman thing. I've always wondered what it was like to train with a yatagan, and I'll tell you, this is under 2 pounds. It's very agile, lightning fast. When you just flick the wrist and whoosh, you hear it cut the air. Came in incredibly sharp, incredibly pointy. The handle is made with genuine ram horn, and these parts on the back are called kulak, or ears, and that's actually designed so no matter how hard you're swinging, this thing doesn't easily detach in your hand. I don't think they're good for striking with a butt, unless maybe it's an emergency, but I don't feel confident in that. I don't know the tensile strength of ram horn, right? I have seen yatagans with metal handles, and I would guess you could hit someone with that. It has no handguard. I paid a slight price. I was swinging it around and testing out different targets, when it came out of the box, and having fun with it with my right hand. And I have a background in Filipino martial arts, also Japanese and Chinese martial arts, so I was trying different techniques. I've also seen a lot of videos on YouTube on Turkish and Mamluk and Arabic and Persian swordsmanship and things like that, including someone who had techniques extrapolated from translations of Matrakch Nesuhi. Matrakch Nesuhi, who was a famous Ottoman janissary who actually wrote a treatise on different things, including the sport of matrak, which was a sort of you get a stick with a pad on the end of it and a padded shield, and they actually practice their swordsmanship, and it also has it's a context, okay? And so one guy posted a lot of combinations and translations, and I've been studying that, and so that's one reason why I got this yatagan. It's actually yatan, but yatagan is how it's spelled in English. I'm Turkish American, but I don't live there, but I know it's pronounced yatan, and yatagan is how it's spelled. But what I will tell you is it's incredible for cutting and chopping. But if you notice, unlike a Greek kopis of kukri, it sort of curves, turns back in, comes to a very tapered point. So it's great for stabbing, but it doesn't have a handguard. And I was adjusting to this. I was cutting and stabbing into wood and things like that, and it held the edge really fine. It held the point fairly well. But when I switched over to my left hand, I did some kind of a hooking overhead stab into solid wood, and my hand slipped a bit, and I got little cuts on 1, 2, these 3 fingers, right? Little tiny. So I don't know if my hand slid up all the way to the blade or if it just got to here, and these edges actually are very abrupt and sharp. But I gave myself very tiny cuts. No real blood gushing anywhere or anything. But I was like, all right, I really have to adjust to this weapon. And, then I practiced with my right hand and did some slammed in fairly hard doing stabs and things like that, and I got a better idea. I've also affixed some electrician's tape here just to give myself a little bit more purchase, a little bit less slip. Part of the issue is, a Janissary, for example, or some of the Turkish cavalry people who, Janissaries had formal training, and cavalry, which are called Sipahi and Tamarlı, and, different cavalry people, Akıncılar, maybe they trained with their family, right? But they started training early. Very early. They learned how to ride a horse in their childhood, how to swing weapons. I think Janissaries started their training around 6 or 7 or something like that, right? And so, I don't have a lifetime of dealing with this weapon. I'm 53 and just got this weapon. And so, I have to proceed cautiously. If I feel fairly comfortable with swinging this around, I may make a few videos of me, doing some work in the air and possibly cutting. It is exciting. I've been doing the Modern Arnis Anyo 1 and 2, and I noticed it moves extremely well with the Atan, all right? So that was interesting. And so I may, in the mornings I get up, and one of the first exercises I do after I go to the bathroom is I pick this thing up and practice some of my, different techniques I've learned from different martial arts and try to adapt to this weapon. So there is a lot going on. We're moving now right out of 2022 into 2023. Hey, we've gone through some crazy stuff these past couple of years, and, I don't think the crazy's over. We're doing our best. Try to stay healthy, try to stay sane and safe. Let me know in the comments, do you want to hear more about the UFO UAP book and my thoughts on that topic? Do you want to know more about the science fiction and the fantasy? If those are topics people are interested in, or if you have, specific questions, again, I'm not obligated to respond to anything mean or nasty. There's a lot of weirdness on the internet and in the world now. But, legitimate questions, legitimate requests, I don't mind doing that. I'm honestly, folks, I'm starting to lose interest a little bit in YouTubing, and focus more on myself and more on other things. I'm even thinking of taking a hiatus or sabbatical from teaching my students and focus more on my personal, getting back to my roots with my kung fu, my forms, my iron palm, my weapons training. And, just focusing more on what I'm doing in the gym. I'm having a lot of fun there. And I love when I'm done and I use that hydro massage after I stretch. Oh, man, I feel like $1,000,000. So, if there are things that people want to hear about from me in 2023, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I may taper off a little bit on the videos. You notice I haven't done any in a while. But to those of my subscribers, who my longtime subscribers, some of them might even call fans or friends, I hope you guys just have a really good holiday and New Year. I celebrate it as Isaac Newton Day because he was born on that day, and he is a man who contributed a lot to science, and he had a lot of problems. He was just a human being, and I take inspiration from all the things he did and all the things he suffered through. And just goes to show you that even if you have flaws and you're going through hard times, doesn't mean you cannot achieve some form of greatness and, be remembered. Well, you all have a wonderful night.